until the day he died. Live Oak was so small that the roads in and out were darker than pitch, and the Saturn's yellowed headlights didn't offer much in the way of illumination. It was a murky drive, one that Jack took 2 or 3 times a month, most times in the dead of night, sometimes in the pouring rain. Trips that were made with the band, miles ticked away on the odometer in the name of a youthful dream. Play music, make money, be happy, do what you love. Tonight the sky was clear. The stars were out and burning bright for the birthday girl. And yet, despite the stars, it seemed darker than ever, like someone had reached into the sky and turned off the moon. Jack furrowed his eyebrows against the throb at his temples and backed off the gas. He couldn't see more than 20 feet ahead of him, and the blind spot in his right eye was blooming like a supernova. He flipped on the high beams, and for a moment he could see the road as clear as day. The headlights flickered once, flickered twice. The last thing he saw was a pair of animal eyes, reflecting bright silver and wide in the darkness. The headlights went out. Jerking the wheel was an instinct. Jack's mind wasn't focused on whether the car would fly off the road, but whether those eyes belonged to a human rather than an animal. The trees along the side of the road housed occasional stragglers, and the idea of killing a man outweighed the impulse to keep the wheel pointed straight ahead. One of the tires caught the embankment. The car was thrown off balance. It jerked sideways, rubber screaming across the pavement, and then inertia swallowed them whole, lifting the car off the ground and spinning it into a graceful pirouette. There was nothing but silence. Nobody cried out. For that brief moment, the world had gone soundless. Then, the sickening crunch of metal against asphalt, the creak and pop of safety glass, the explosion and powdery stench of airbags, the grinding of the roof against the road as they slid to a stop. The first sound that breached the silence was Aimee's hyperventilating. She tore at her seatbelt despite being upside down, determined to get out of the car if it was the last thing she did. Jack dangled from the driver's seat, suspended in the air like an astronaut awaiting ignition. He imagined being paralyzed, wondered if it would hurt to sever your spinal cord, or to die in a car accident like this one. But he could hear Aimee thrashing, he could hear her crying. He couldn't possibly be dead. And then a final assurance that he was still alive. Abigail began to scream. That scream motivated Jack to tear himself free, to fumble with his seatbelt and shove open his door, tumbling onto the glass-speckled street like a clown rolling out of a circus car. Aimee kicked at her door as she screamed. If he had time to close his eyes, her cries would have convinced him that both Abby and Charlie were dead, smeared across the tarmac, roadkill left for the cleanup crew. Jack got to Abby before Aimee crawled out of the car. He pulled open the back door and caught his eldest daughter around her waist, unbuckling her from the back seat and heaving her from the mangled wreck. Abby stopped screaming the moment she saw her mother. She started to bawl instead. "What happened?" Aimee yelled, her face twisted with panic. "Jack, what the hell happened?" She was trying to keep calm, but every word that clawed its way up her throat was a shriek. Jack didn't reply. He was busy dashing around the other side of the car, his heart stuck in his throat, threatening to choke him. Like a newborn baby fresh to the world, Abby had screamed and assured her parents that she was alive, but Charlie hadn't made a sound. Not a whine, not a whimper. His every nerve stood on end, buzzing with dread as he wrenched open the back door and stuck his head inside. To his relief, hovering over him like an overturned angel, Charlie dangled from her car seat, her hair hanging in her face. "Hi, Daddy," she said softly. Jack's heart swelled in his chest. "Hi, baby," he whispered back, fumbling with the seat's latch, careful not to let her tumble out of his arms and onto the roof. "Do we flip?" she asked, her arms around his neck. "Like in the movies?" "Yeah," he replied, only now remembering that reflective pair of eyes, the ones that had made him jerk the wheel in the first place. He hadn't bothered to look and see if anything was lying dead in the road. Part of him hoped that whatever had caused this had been flattened by the Saturn's front bumper. If the road was clear, he had half a mind to storm into the woods and find something to kill, if only to satiate his sudden compulsion for retribution. Jack pulled Charlie from the car and set her down on her sneakered feet. Abby and Aimee wept into each other's arms while Jack and Charlie stood silent, both of them transfixed by the smashed Saturn. "Cool," Charlie whispered under her breath, her eyes sparkling in the moonlight, eerily reminiscent of the eyes that had caused this chaos in the first place. That single word of childlike wonder thrust him out of his thoughts and back into reality, and for the briefest of moments, despite the circumstances, he tried not to laugh. The moment was cut short.